Welcome to the Coach Dave Jones podcast. Come to get crystal clear about what you want out of life and out of your business. Come to get crystal clear about why you want that. Come to get clear about what you want to do and who you're going to help and why it matters to them. Come to get crystal clear to develop a plan that will work for you in attaining what you want out of your life and out of your business. So we diving right in. It's Coach Dave, Crystal Clear Podcast, Episode 2. We talking business. We talking business every day. So, you've noticed just from episode 1 to episode 2, I called it the Coach Dave Jones podcast, and then I iterated while I was editing to the Crystal Clear podcast. One thing that I often talk about is, and think about, is iterating to improve the customer experience. Iterating every aspect of my value proposition, of my value stream, of my value delivery. I want to make sure that as a consumer of my content, as a consumer of my services, as a consumer of any products that I produce, whether they be digital or physical, whether they be in this realm or another, that you clearly understand what it is that I'm offering, that the story associated with that offering is clear and resonates with a specific person. So, just to give you a little, backstory about myself. I'm 33. Yeah, I'm 33 years old. I'll be 34 later this year. I was born in Arkansas. My mother's primarily only worked for herself in her adult life. She's been a beautician. She is a beautician. She's been in her own business for my entire life. So that's all I've ever known my mother to do. My father, he has been in his current job for, I think, about 44 years now. Same place, doing his thing, excelling and climbing through his career trajectory. In addition to that, my father's always had something else going on. Also, an entrepreneur in his own right. So I grew up in a household where entrepreneurship was very normal. To see someone getting up every day to go do their own thing, or to realize that if there's something in your life that you want to achieve when it comes to income or money, that you can do that and you should do that. It's your responsibility. So I'm telling you this to set a certain stage for what I'm going to talk about today. And just so you know, my mother's parents are very similar. My dad comes from a family lineage of people working very hard, making their own way in their own rights as well. So as far as I can tell, I'm at least a 4th generation entrepreneur. So my mom's mother is also a beautician. She's been in business for 60 years. Her father and other family members have a family farm in Arkansas. So they did that. And that's at least one generation prior there. That farm has been in the family for over 100 years. Still in the family. My great uncles live there, still do their thing. Running the farm, they have dump truck businesses. So, just coming from this background of doing it your way for yourself in a way that makes sense and resonates with you. So today I want to talk about staying focused on the customer and staying focused on iterating and keeping up with the pace of the day and the times. My grandparents' generation, so my grandmother, her brothers on my mom's side, they weren't always full-time entrepreneurs or business owners, however you want to say it or look at it, as they are now. It was an evolution of starting to do one thing on the family farm, deciding to do things, I guess what we would consider the traditional way. Go get a job, start a career, work somewhere for somebody. And then over time, realizing that to create the life that you want to have, you have to seize opportunities that present themselves to you. You have to believe in yourself enough to know that you can do it and that you should do it. So my grandmother specifically, living at home, working on the farm as a late teen, leaves the farm, gets with my grandfather, they get married. They were married for 50 some odd years before he passed away. Long story short, she gets a job as a shampoo lady at a beauty shop in the town in which she lives in Arkansas. And during her time there was an opportunity that presented itself after several years of working there for her to take ownership of that business due to whatever the circumstance was with the owner at that time. I believe this was late 60s, early 70s. So she took that opportunity. She worked it. She grew the business. She built the clientele. She was able to own the real estate, sold that real estate, and moved into a smaller space later in life. She's just turned 80 years old, still goes to work at least 6 hours a day, 6 days a week, still wakes up at 5 a.m. in the shop by 6 every day, 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday. She's still extremely vibrant. She keeps up with the times. She knows what's going on with music, hip hop music. You know, she has grandkids. I'm the oldest. The youngest is my youngest sibling, my little sister. No. Got a little cousin younger than her. But, you know, they're like 18 to 20. So, or maybe he's 16, 17, somewhere right in there. But anyway, that if you are keeping up with the times and serving your customers in business, you will also keep up with the times in terms of staying current, staying fresh with trends in society, trends in the world. And that's all a part of innovating and keeping up and ideally staying ahead of your customers' expectations. The thing about people is that we are divinely discontent, meaning that it is natural, as it is for all forms of life, to seek a larger existence. You know, if you plant a seed in the ground, it doesn't stay a seed. It either becomes nothing or becomes something. And its goal is to become something. So if you plant a tree, it starts to sprout. It just looks like a little leaf coming out the ground. Looks like a little twig. You fast forward over time, it's a full-grown tree. And guess what? That tree is always growing. Even if you can't see it growing in height, its roots are extending. It's always seeking a fuller existence. What's the same thing for people? You can have a great offer today that satisfies or satiates the desire of your customer today. But tomorrow, whether that's literally tomorrow or figuratively tomorrow, their desires will evolve. Yeah, they will want more. They want to express themselves in a fuller way. And that's what your products and services do. Helps them to express themselves, whether that's their life, their business, how they interact with others, how they're perceived in the world, whatever, in a fuller and higher way that's meaningful to them. So as an entrepreneur, it is your job to pay attention to how your customer is utilizing your product or service, not to become so arrogant as to believe that you're the one person who's developed, released, marketed the one infallible, perfect, and non-changing solution. Many great companies have failed, and in fact, all great companies have failed. All great nations have failed in the past and will continue to do so. When at some point in their evolution, whether within the lifetime of its founder or in subsequent generations, when it loses its way in focusing on the customer, what they need, trends of society, trends of taste, trends of preference. Sears Roebuck Corporation was the mightiest, if not the mightiest, one of the mightiest companies on all the earth. For decades, many fortunes were made for the family as well as for employees for many decades. It was an institution in many households and in many communities. That's where you go to get almost everything you need for the home. At some point, Sears Roebuck Corporation, Sears, Kmart, I'm sure they had other holdings, but those are the two most notable ones come to my mind. At some point along their line of evolution, they stopped focusing on what made them great, and that was servicing the needs of a very specific burgeoning middle-class consumer. They gave access to the American dream in a way that no other corporation had done. And at some point, they took their eye off the ball, and other companies were able to come in and dethrone them. And it was a very painful and slow death for them. Because they were successful for so long, they had sufficient capital to prolong their painful death, to stay alive on life support. And then other companies, Walmart, we'll use them as an example. They come in and they start to fill that role in a better and higher way. Well, you fast forward from the 60s when they were founded, and in their heyday in the 80s, 90s, and first decade of the 2000s. And, as you approach the 2000s, they're blowing and going. They're on top of the world. Fortune 1. This little thing called the internet comes along. And I'm old enough to remember a life without the internet. Granted, I grew up with the internet and its deployment. I remember the dial-up and all the little sounds it made when you turned it on. But this thing called the internet comes along. You had the whole .com boom. And there were certain institutions that were born during that time who realized that if you put on your forward-looking lens and you can anticipate, which to them seemed as the obvious evolution of things, that the internet makes it easy to connect with any number of products and services that you desire. And if you can deliver value through digital means, well, your cost of marketing and your cost of distribution significantly decrease. And they're able to take the basic concept of mercantile commerce and say, how do I help more people find the things that they want more quickly, with ease, and get it to them efficiently, to where it's a comparable or superior experience to shopping in physical locations? Enter Amazon, enter Google, enter eBay, enter e-commerce as an industry. Walmart could have very well dominated that sector had they been focused on the future evolution of consumer taste. I spent the first 12 years of my business career as an adult, post-college, working in corporate America. And in corporate America, if you're listening to this, you'll understand what I'm saying. If you don't, maybe you've always been an entrepreneur, or maybe you haven't been involved in quote unquote corporate level decisions. What often happens is you hire a whole bunch of people who are smart, book smart, and they'll tell you how you can optimize your business mathematically. And what that basically boils down to is, how do you streamline the business? How do you get waste out? And to them, waste is cost. How do you remove costs, improve cost efficiency, so you can return more profit to the company, to its shareholders, and maybe deliver some price decreases to the customer when appropriate, or maybe you raise the cost. But ultimately, the point I'm getting at is that those goals go from externally facing, meaning focused on the customer, to internally focused, meaning focused on self or focused on the organization. And if you're only focused on what you get out of the situation, well, you're missing the whole point of business, and that is to be of service. If you're not adding value to your customer, increasing value in ways that they acknowledge as being meaningful and impactful in a positive way in their lives, if you do that long enough, you're going to go out of business. It's just that simple. So, it is imperative, if you want to build a lasting enterprise, that you keep it in the forefront of your mind is goal one, to be of service to the customer. And the best way to be of service to the customer is to pay attention to how they're interacting with your products, services, or both. You pay attention to trends. Technology trends are incredibly important. Emerging technologies. It's important to pay attention to taste, preferences, the geopolitical climate, not in terms of conflict, but in terms of which societies and cultures will be the tastemakers of tomorrow. When they become the tastemakers of tomorrow, well, their cultural taste will become the prevailing taste of the world. That's how it works. If you don't believe me, study history. If you want a condensed history lesson, suggest you purchase the book Principles for Dealing with the Changing World Order by Ray Dalio. Raydalio. So Amazon is on Audible. I'm sure you can get it anywhere you can get a book or an audiobook. He started the most successful hedge fund in history. So he's built a success through studying history, economic trends, and how as humans we tend to repeat the same basic things over and over And he frames that in economic terms. He did a great job of explaining this. It helped really inform this view that I'm sharing with you. Anyway, you have to pay attention to these things, because when you pay attention to it, well, then you're able to adjust course and adjust plan to keep up with those changing tastes and demands, so that you can continue to produce products and services that are of significant value to your consumer. You want to become a necessity rather than an option. And you become a necessity rather than an option through adding so much value that a person can no longer imagine their life without your company being in it. I hope this has been helpful to you. Hope that you're able to take this information and apply it in a meaningful way to improve your business. Hope you're able to take this information and clarify your mission, your implementation plan, your improvement plans, the way that you view your relationship with your customer. Hope you'll see it as a collaboration and a partnership over a long period of time. It's like a marriage or any relationship where you want that relationship to maintain strong closeness and building synergy over time. Well, you have to communicate. You have to pay attention to one another and say, how can I anticipate your needs? How can I be of service to you over time? Add more value to your life. Same thing for your customers. How can you provide more use value in your product and service than you receive in cash value? That is a fair transaction. They need to get more out of what they get from you than what they're giving to you. That's how profit is created, because they're willing to pay a price that exceeds your price of production, because the use value enhances their life in some way that exceeds the cost of the item. If you could, take a moment to like this, subscribe to this on whatever platform that you're listening to this on at the time at which you're listening. I appreciate your time and attention to this point. You can follow me on the following social media channels. It's at Coach Dave Jones. That's on Instagram. That's on Twitter. That's on Facebook. On Facebook, it's at Coach Dave Jones FB. But just search Coach Dave Jones. You'll find me. I look just like the thumbnail for this. I'm wearing a hat in all the pictures. I look forward to chatting with you again. You have a great day. Can't wait to connect again soon.